Mr. Watts, as I indicated when we began, you have the right to make a statement if you choose to. Would you like to make a statement?
No, sir.
Thank you. So the court has considered the arguments made by the attorneys. The court has considered the statements made by the victims in this case. The court's going to find that the plea agreement is fair and reasonable under the circumstances. I want to acknowledge the Rusick family as well as the Watts family that showing mercy on Mr. Watts is understood, and I respect that decision to request that the district attorney not seek the death penalty in this case. And so the court is going to accept this plea bargain under the circumstances. Words that come to mind when I hear the evidence in this case are a senseless crime and the viciousness of the crime. And equally aggravating in this court's determination is the despicable act of disposing of the bodies in the manner in which they were done in this case. I've been a judicial officer now for starting my 17th year, and I could objectively say that this is perhaps the most inhumane and vicious crime that I have handled out of the thousands of cases that I have seen.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science. In this episode we'll look at the Watts sentencing hearing, which happened on November 19th, 2018, which was Thanksgiving last year. I would have covered this on the actual anniversary of the sentencing hearing, November 19 this year, but I was preoccupied with the Frazee trial, which concluded after just 11 trial days on November 18th, and then the discovery was released shortly after that. As it happened, I live blogged the events of November 19, and I think they will make for very interesting review a year and 8 days later. So let's get into that. Before we do, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please do. Please like, share, leave a comment. I'm really trying to get to 7,000 followers, 7,000 subscribers by the end of this month. I've got 3 days to go, and about 100, I think just under 200 subscribers to go. You think we're going to get there? We'll see. Anyway, let's get started. So I was actually up at the same time that the trial was sort of going to be covered in America, and just following everything that was sort of coming out of Denver and Greeley and Weld County, and this was the result. You can go and have a look at the blog to see the images and the tweets and the news coverage, but I'll try to provide as much of that here as I can. And so this was how the coverage unfolded. Welcome to what appears right now to be the end of the legal road in the Chris Watts case. November 19 is just 3 months and 6 days after the tragic murders that rocked the small, thriving Colorado town of Frederick in mid-August. Today, the legal journey is expected to conclude with Judge Kopkow officially accepting Chris Watts' guilty plea on all charges. In exchange, Chris Watts will be spared the death penalty and sentenced to life behind bars without the possibility of parole. Irrespective of the legal outcome of this case, an entire family has been completely destroyed through the events that played out sometime between August 12th and 13th this year. According to the district attorney, they have and are satisfied with a partial motive to this crime. This partial motive will be revealed in court today by Michael Rourke. Brief background. There's more to it than this, of course. On November 16th, the Greeley Tribune spelled some of the shenanigans out. Number 1. Chris Watts' parents do not want him to accept the plea deal and have claimed they've been denied access to their son and that the plea deal was or is coerced. If that's true, the plea deal is invalid. The district attorney has not responded to these allegations, but the Rusiks have been through an the Rusiks have through an anonymous legal representative. Number 2, according to the Tribune, on Monday, November 12th, the court received an email from a K. Almond, an assumed representative for Cindy and Ronnie Watts. In the letter to Judge Kopkow, Almond claims the Colorado Public Defender's Office, which is defending Watts, has denied Cindy and Ronnie access to their son. Cindy, Ronnie, and an unnamed sister finally gained access to Watts for 30 minutes each the night before the sentencing hearing, Almond claims. Cindy asked her son if a plea deal is what he wanted. "Do not ask him that, or we will shut this expletive down," said an unnamed attorney before Watts could respond, according to Almond's letter. Almond said that type of bullying has been common in the Watts family's dealing with the Public Defender's Office. It's the opinion of Mr. Watts' family that he has been coerced, has been denied his constitutional rights and more, all in an attempt to quickly close this case, Almond wrote. They want to have a new attorney speak to Chris on their behalf to determine if this is a true confession or one that is based on inhumane treatment at the hands of the Public Defender's Office of Weld County. Almond closed the letter by saying Cindy Watts wanted to speak to Judge Kopkow about her son's case and possible mistreatment. Kopkow issued an order saying he was barred from having any conversations about the case outside of the courtroom. Number 3. The autopsy reports regarding the remains of Shanann Watts 34, Bella Watts 4, and Celeste Watts 3 have not been released prior to sentencing. These reports, completed on October 2nd, will be released after sentencing, according to the district attorney. This release of the autopsy reports will likely neutralize a civil hearing on the matter that was originally scheduled for December 21st. This civil hearing was going to be undertaken by the media. The district attorney's original position on the autopsy reports was unusual in that it was claimed their release could taint witnesses, make it difficult to seat an impartial jury, and the victim's cause of death could be critical evidence at trial. This is me speaking in 2019. If you think about the fact that there was a plea deal, then there was no question of tainting witnesses, and there was no question of an impartial jury, and there was no question apparently of it causing critical evidence to be leaked at trial or before trial. I do think this particular evidence had to do with the high alcohol content found in Shanann's remains, which we'll get to in a further episode. Now back to the contents of that particular blog post. Again, going back to point number 3. If Rourke felt the autopsy evidence was so sensitive, then why did the defense feel they had no case to plead? Why did they make or accept the plea deal? Number 4. A raft of publications, including the Tribune, claimed in a court motion on October 12th that the withholding of the autopsy reports from public scrutiny could cause substantial injury to the public interest. November 19. Welcome to a bitterly cold day in Greeley, Colorado. Minimum temperatures today were 17 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 9 degrees Celsius at 6 o'clock, and may climb to a crisp 46 degrees Fahrenheit, 7 degrees Celsius by the time the press conference is scheduled at 1300 hours. The day will start mostly sunny in the early morning and remain bright and sunny throughout. A typical early winter's day in Colorado with a slight breeze blowing over the snow-covered prairie. This is this is a big change from the weekend, which saw a big cold front roll in and dump snow and drizzle over the mountains and plains surrounding Denver. On Thanksgiving Thursday, another cold front is due to move in and change the region's weather for the worse. So it was almost as if the weather knew what was coming in terms of the Watts case. A couple of tweets highlighted included one from Gary Shapiro. Today, Chris Watts will be sentenced for the deaths of his pregnant wife Shanann and their two daughters, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste. He is expected to get life in prison as part of a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. Complete coverage on 9 News. It's 05:55, 1 hour until sunrise. Sunrise on August 13th was 06:08, 42 minutes earlier than today. At this time 3 months ago, Chris Watts was on the road, driving to Survey 319. In 10 minutes, the sun will rise over the sandstone courthouse in Greeley, Colorado. Did you know Greeley was the setting for Pulitzer Prize-winning historical fiction author James A. Michener's centennial? Michener studied in Greeley and was so inspired by the setting and the history of the region, he used it as the backdrop for his bestseller, which was also made into a mini-series in the 70s. The scene in front of Weld County Centennial Center. Notice the spattering of snow in the background. In the morning news, 2 large fires are under investigation, including one that started as an explosion in Aurora. The Aurora fire included reports of a gas leak days prior and conflicting reports on whether the gas company notified residents in advance via email. Other news making the headlines: the weather on the run-up to Thanksgiving on Thursday, Black Friday sales, a shocking report on flu vaccinations, rezoning plans, a new name for a baseball team, a new Disney on Ice show, getting water supply from a distant mine to Aurora, a new marijuana store opening in Longmont. Longmont is a town close to Frederick where Chris Watts and Shanann worked at a Ford dealership. How to prevent peanut allergies, a surge in porch piracy, Denver-based Furniture Row racing finishing second at the NASCAR Championship, Christmas tree cutting tips, a Christmas countdown, what teens want for Christmas according to a recent survey, and lower gas prices. Then a tweet by Megan Lopez. Happening in less than 4 hours, Chris Watts will be formally sentenced to prison for the murders of his pregnant wife and 2 young daughters. Here's a look at how this case unfolded. Chris Decker, defense attorney, was interviewed regarding the Watts case, and what he said was, "I wasn't surprised. I think Michael Rourke deserves quite a lot of praise. He was smart and brave and acquiesced to the family's desires." This is in terms of the plea deal. David Beller, defense attorney. The speed at which this deal was reached is extremely unusual. Then a tweet that I sent out: Denver 7 believes Nichol Kessinger won't testify today. So at that time there was no indication whether she would testify or not, whether she would even be seen in court or not. Triple rainbow observed this morning, 40 miles from Frederick. Rachel Gibbs from Nags Head, North Carolina, said she also spotted a rainbow this morning. Megan Lopez. There's a line already forming outside the courtroom for the sentencing for Chris Watts. There's a lot of media here and a few family friends. Madeline St. Amour. I'm in line at Weld County Court for the sentencing hearing for Chris Watts. It's mostly reporters, with a few people who have been following the case as well. What to expect from today's sentencing hearing in a nutshell. Shanann's family can speak. Chris Watts' parents can speak. Chris Watts can speak. Judge hands down sentence. Megan Lopez has tweeted a couple of photos about the media presence outside court. Wish we could see more pictures of the court building, just a wide shot to get a sense of the whole area. Then a tweet from Katie Foodie. Sentencing hearing for Chris Watts, Colorado man who pleaded guilty in family killing, set for 10 a.m. Then Katie Foodie again. Around 40 people, including national media, have lined up for a courtroom seat this morning. Court staff have prepared an overflow room with video stream for those who can't get in. Hashtag Chris Watts. Megan Lopez says she'll be tweeting from outside court because no tweeting is allowed inside court. Seems excessive and extreme, doesn't it? Well, this happened to be the same rule imposed in the Frazee case, no live tweeting. Megan Lopez, they started letting people in the courtroom. No electronics are allowed inside. Jen Kovaleski will be in there. I'm going to stay outside and tweet the proceedings for people who don't have access to our Denver channel live stream. Then a tweet from Crime Rocket. Michael Rourke reads Frankie Rusek's statement on his behalf. Chris Watts glances quickly up at him and then back down. To be honest, you're not even worth the time to pen this paper. Why? Did you really think this was your best option? Another tweet from Crime Rocket. After 15 minutes, Shanann's family are done. Chris Watts swallows, shakes head, drums his foot on the floor. Another tweet by Crime Rocket. We hope he embraces that moment to be given a life sentence. And I think that was a quote from the representative of the Watts family. Another tweet by Crime Rocket. Chris Watts looks down, swallows hard, Frankie choking back tears while Rourke continues to read his statement. Quote, no one has the right to take the life of another, even someone like you. End quote. Hashtag TCRS. Another tweet from Crime Rocket. Chris Watts on the morning of the murders called Primrose School to tell them the girls wouldn't be enrolled anymore. He called a realtor to discuss the selling of his house, and he texted his girlfriend. Another tweet from Crime Rocket. A tuft of Bella's hair was found on the hatch of one of the oil tanks. Scratches were found on Bella's buttocks. Another tweet from Crime Rocket. This is quoting Michael Rourke. In quotes, he was seen from the neighbor's doorbell camera going back and forth to his truck 3 times, each time for each of the bodies. End quote. Another tweet from Crime Rocket. A bit of inappropriate chuckling there. This is perhaps the most inhumane and vicious crime that I've handled in thousands of cases. End quote. From Judge Kopkow. Then after less than 45 minutes the court was in recess, and that was it. That was the end of the sentencing trial. Watts stood up and sort of walked in front of the court, leaving before anyone else, wearing kind of an orange jumpsuit and spectacles. So from beginning to end, the sentencing hearing lasted less than 45 minutes. A total of about 6 people spoke, including Cindy Watts, a representative on behalf of Ronnie Watts, Frank Rusick, Michael Rourke, reading Frankie Rusick's statement, Sandy Rusick, a brief 15-second statement by Chris Watts' legal representative, and then a delineation of the evidence by the district attorney, which lasted about 10 minutes. Throughout the proceedings, Watts drummed his foot on the floor and appeared to struggle to contain his emotions. He breathed heavily but made no sound, and repeatedly curled his lip and bit it. At one point, while his father was speaking, I believe, a single tear streamed down his cheek. At the end, when Judge Kopkow asked him if he wished to say anything, Watts answered softly, "No, sir." His legal representative spoke briefly on his behalf, saying that he was truly sorry. What was unreal was the mismatch between the crime the district attorney and the judge were describing, a vicious, calculated, monstrous act, and the demeanor of the defendant, passive, voiceless, trying his best to be emotionless, as if a lack of emotion under these circumstances was some sort of virtue. When he rose and walked out of the packed court, Watts looked down, not making eye contact with anyone, not his mother, not his father. Welcome to a living hell. Will Nichol Kessinger testify? And this is a tweet from Jays for Justice. I just got word that Nichol Kessinger will be making a statement at the sentencing tomorrow. Another tweet from Ashley Banfield. Chris Watts has now been led out of the courtroom after hearing his life sentences for murdering his family in Colorado this summer. He said nothing, nor did he seem to even shed a tear during the victim's impact. And then I provided links to the press conference and the autopsy reports. And finally, I provided the following analysis of Monday's hearing. There were a few things that were downright weird about the hearing. No actual witnesses testified, only family members, and although each statement was emotional and tugged at the heartstrings, it did precious little to advance the narrative of the Watts case. Rourke did that himself in a 10-minute or so summary, in which he provided a few, very few, insights into the case. He mentioned Bella biting her tongue and fighting for her life, a tuft of her hair snagged on the side of the thief hatch, and scratch marks on her buttocks incurred when she was forced into the tank. What was more interesting in the sentencing hearing wasn't what was mentioned, but what was left out. Nothing about time of death whatsoever. No one close to the Watts family in Colorado testified for or against him. The Thayers didn't appear to be in court. Neither did Nicole Utoft or Nichol Kessinger. Just as a small aside to this analysis, I did see a photo of Nicole Utoft that's Nicole Atkinson, with her hair dyed kind of a purple color. So this image appeared very late in the aftermath to the sentencing, and this image did seem to confirm that Nicole Atkinson was present at the sentencing. I did find it very weird that the press didn't seem to get any photos of anyone of interest at the sentencing, which I think was part of the sort of demand of the sentencing judge. Although this was the case, it does seem kind of extraordinary that given the high-profile nature of this case, none of the sort of members of the public were really photographed. And this brings us to the final concluding sentence from the review of November 19th. In fact, the families appear to be ushered into court via private entrance and ushered out privately too. It was all conducted with seamless precision. The crowds roared afterwards. Justice is served. Thank you for listening.
It's been alluded to this morning, but the defendant was certainly eligible for the death penalty in this case under the existing law in the state of Colorado. As you heard, Shanann's family strongly opposed my office seeking the death penalty, and being bound to the criminal justice system for the next several decades. That's in large part, as you've heard, why we have reached the agreement that we have. 4 lives were lost at the hands of the defendant on August 13th for reasons that we will never fully understand, nor will we know. In the end, the Rusick family was much more merciful towards him than he was towards his wife, his daughters, and his unborn son. Prison for the remainder of his life is exactly where he belongs for murdering his entire family. Thank you.
Are you seeking 91 days to file a request for restitution?
I am, Your Honor, please.
I'll grant that request. Mr. Walls, will you be speaking on behalf of your client? Or?
Ms. Harold.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Harold.
Good morning, Your Honor. Mr. Watts has asked us to share this morning that he is devastated by all of this. And although he understands that words are hollow at this point, he is sincerely sorry for all of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Watts, as I indicated when we began, you have the right to make a statement if you choose to. Would you like to make a statement?
No, sir.
Thank you.